satisfied, because normally the president sees demos on TV, but he was there himself to see Kenyans telling him what are the things that doesn't work in the country, why Kenyans are dissatisfied, and the changes that Kenyans are crying for.
We appreciate that one. So what do you think are the differences between protesting in a foreign country like in London, I mean, in the UK, and the way the protesters are handled in Kenya?
The difference is UK is a democratic country where free speech is respected and encouraged, and voicing an opinion anywhere in a democratic country should be allowed and be respected. While in Kenya, even though we have a constitution of 2010 which allows that, it doesn't really appear, to be respected. And when you think about it, this is a country that is talking about democracy. This is a country that wants foreign investors to come. And when you are looking for this, or you are lobbying for this, you also want to show the credibility of what you are saying is what is happening, because you can't speak about democracy. You can't speak about rule of law, and then you as a person, you are not respecting that.
Thank you very much for that. So what's your take on the handshake? Do you believe it's going to alleviate Kenyan suffering?
I think the handshake is really a betrayal of the Kenyan people, because all the people who rallied, who supported the opposition campaign, all the years of hard work, all the lobbying, all the money that people donated, and for what? So that the same mistakes are just repeated again. It is time of the old guard to step aside or be pushed aside, and the next generation can build a new Kenya. A Kenya of morality, honesty, integrity. A Kenya where the rights of people are respected, whether rich or poor. A Kenya where tribe no longer dictates alliance, but where character is king, or queen in this case. A Kenya where the voice of women is heard more clearly at the highest level. Others seem to have given up. For good Kenya, I will not.
When you talk of the old guard stepping aside, you remember in 2013, the Kenyan people were told that the old guard should step aside so that the young tax can actually come inside and, say the government, run the government, things are going to be okay. But yes, you see that there is a very big disparity. Even when the old guards, I'm talking of Kibaki and Raila, were in power, there were a lot of development. But right now, do you see anything actually happening, especially in the new guards or the young tax you are talking about?
When I talk about young guard, I talk like, let's say if we are, we go to election and we have a mandate of 5 years in every election. If then those leaders are not accountable, and they have done nothing those 5 years, then there is no need of Kenyan people to vote them back in, because then they are not accountable and they haven't done what the Kenyan people voted them for. So we need those people. If a leader is not accountable, you give a leader a mandate of like 5 years and they haven't done their job, then those leaders should step aside. There should be a way that leaders are accountable and they don't get, at the end of their mandate, and they are supposed to step down and give opportunities to other people.
Thank you. So basically you are saying that the handshake is not going really to help Kenyans, and as per your insightful thoughts, you don't think that it's really going to help in anything?
I think the handshake, and I repeat again, the handshake is a betrayal of the Kenyan people, because we have seen handshake many times and we just repeat the same mistake. However, if the handshake is going, to address the issues that Kenyans were fighting for, that is corruption, electoral justice, impunity, okay, I'm happy with that. But if it's going to, however, if it's going to. But another thing is, I don't know even what to say about this handshake, because we don't have any details. So it's like talking of something that I don't know, because we have no any details of this handshake.
Oh, so what you are yearning for is to get the details about the handshake.
Yes, and a handshake that is, lobbying for injustices that have happened in the country, the killing, the police brutality, the injustice, the impunity, all that. Then we Kenyans, we are happy, because all what Kenyans want is justice.
So basically, justice should be the shield and our defender.
Exactly, because justice then it comes together. Because then you can't say love, peace, and unity, and there's no justice. When justice is there, then love and unity comes. But justice is the key of all that.
They are telling us, the government and part of the opposition or part of the NASA is telling us to wait for things to start. I mean, the handshake to their modalities, their reforms they want to bring on board. So should Kenyans still continue waiting, or they should continue pounding questions to Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga?
I think what Kenya should do is to pound questions to the government, and push the government so then it doesn't forget its job. We need to pressure them to tell them that they should do the right things, the ideas, what Kenyans we are fighting for. We don't just sit and wait. Because one thing, the handshake, we still don't have the details, even more after a month. We don't have the details of that handshake. So what they can do is just say to wait. But wait for what? In that monologue that was read at that particular day of the handshake, there was nothing addressed about police brutality, about corruption, injustice. You can't just tell people we are coming together, we are building unity, but then you are not addressing the issue which brought that division.
So as per your own understanding, the handshake must have actually, I mean, if it's a handshake, it should be pegged on issues or deliberations which we can start a roadmap from that particular point, or from point A to point B, not just a handshake hidden or an MOU hidden from Kenyan. So for you, it doesn't actually hold any water.
Exactly, definitely. That's what I'm saying. We needed to know the details from the beginning of this handshake, because this is a country. The country belongs to the Kenyan people, and the Kenyan people wants to know what's happening. This is not a private business. A private business can be between two CEO or two managers, and they can keep the details as far as they want. But this is a country. This has to do with the Kenyans. We are the people. So the details needed to have come at that particular time. We needed to hear the details being addressed at that particular time. Then we are happy, because so what Kenyans want is justice.
Thank you very much, Janet. If I take you a little bit back.
Yes.
We saw so many people protesting against the handshake, against the president speech at Chatham House. And, in a foreign country, a place like in UK, a place let me say in Europe, in the western part of the world, it's not easy for someone really to take a whole day from work and then go to the street and start protesting. So you guys, definitely you must be having a big passion for your country. So what mojo, what really drives you to do all this?
Because one is, we are Kenyans, and, home is always home, and home is always the best. And everybody of us wants to be home with the family, their friends and what have you. The fact that we are here is not that we want to be here, but the fact we are here is because we don't have those opportunities back home. Those opportunities back home of having a job, they are denied, because you see the country, the economy, and the corruption is very high. You can't even get a job. To get a job in Kenya, you need even to bribe somebody to get a job. So we are not here of our own choice. We are here because we don't have any, we don't have anything to do in Kenya. We don't have the possibility to have a good job. So then it was an opportunity for us to talk to the president, because the president is the back. Is the back. The back stops with him, and he's the president. So then he could have known that we are dissatisfied, and then things could change.
Thank you very much, Sister Janet. There's a very good point a gentleman by the name Thomas Musau is putting ahead. He's saying that he's looking forward to hearing the issues that need, let me read it exactly. Looking forward to hearing the issues that need fixing in Kenya. I mean, he really need to understand which issues you need, or we need as Kenyans, to ensure that we fix our country. So as per your perspective, what do you really think should be on the key focus for us to move forward as a country?
I think the key focus is to fight against corruption, because corruption has killed Kenya. Everywhere is corruption. You are unable to do business in Kenya because of corruption. Everything is corruption. And then another thing is tribalism. You know, tribalism has killed the country, and that is a plague we need to get out of, you know, Kenya, because that is just killing our country. So those are the main issues. Then injustice, you know, impunity, and also, you know, our leaders should be held accountable, and also we should be in a position to get leaders of integrity, because even if you have devolution and you don't have leaders of integrity and accountable, that devolution won't work, because you can give as much money as you want to the county government, but nothing works, because then you have the civil servants who are corrupt, you have, you know, the governors who are corrupt. Then what will work? So, you know, the money never gets to the normal mwananchi, never gets to the people who really high need. So we need to find corruption, you know, from civil servants, you know, from the government. That is the key, and tribalism. Then that is the only way to bring together. We want, you know, to be identified, not from, you know, our ethnic groups where we come from, but as a Kenyan, you know. And then from there, I think Kenya will be a better place for everybody.
Thank you very much, Sister Janet. So, as a diasporan, what role do you think diaspora should take or should play in ensuring democracy and the rule of law is respected in Kenya?
I think whether diaspora or not, Kenyan is a Kenyan. And having said that, many of the diaspora are in a unique position to see the bigger picture of the country. We can see clearly that democracy and the rule of law is being ignored. We've seen so many court orders being issued and being ignored. So we are lobbying and demonstrating to bring the ills of the current political landscape into international view. We also want the world to know that justice is being flouted, and we are in a unique position to raise awareness both in Kenya and overseas. And we can also apply pressure by advocating true democracy and not remain in silence about our corrupt system.
Thank you very much. So you are telling Kenyans to stand up and fight for their rights and ensure that we've got justice and tranquility in Kenya.
Exactly.
It is not it's not a one man's job or whatever.
Exactly. It's not a one man's job.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Do you think the government of Kenya is doing enough to alleviate poverty?
Absolutely not, because if they were, then we would be seeing a reduction in poverty levels and the proper management and development of slum areas, places like Kibera, Mathare, but still those places exist even after 55 years, you know, of independence. And also, as we know, Kenya is known as the jewel of Africa. And unfortunately, at the moment and for years past, some politicians have treated their position like bandits, stealing jewels and filling their own pockets, which that is something should stop. And Kenya revenue is substantial enough to make huge progress in dealing with poverty issues, because we have money, because Kenya's revenue is enough, you know, to alleviate poverty, but then we have the looting of the Eurobond, which has never been come to accountable. And if that money, which is being looted by civil servant or by people in politics, is there, then it can alleviate the poverty in Kenya. And also, you know, however, too much public funding disappear, and there is never any consequences for those involved. They are never ever brought into account. Even when people are found guilty by court of law, they are able to bully or bribe their way out of accountability. And the fact is that too many politicians just don't care. They go into politics for money and not to serve the people, not to serve the public. You know, politicians are there to serve the public. But that's not what happens in Kenya.
Go ahead.
That doesn't happen in Kenya. It's like just politicians go there for business. But if you want, you know, money, you become a businessman. You don't go to politics, because politics is just like property, because you are there to serve the people, but not to make money. Like if you check the Western country, we don't have, you know, politicians who are billionaires or millionaires, because politics is property. You are there to serve the people. But if you go in Africa, I'm not just talking in Kenya, in Africa, you see people go to politics like 2-3 years and they are billionaires. Then you have to think and see, where does that money come from? You have to investigate, where did that money come from? Because then that is the looting of taxpayers' money. And then you have Kenyans who live from, you know, hand to mouth, with no food, with no water. They can't pay their bills. They can't pay their school fees. And these are the same people they are paying that tax money, and they don't get the services. But then we have, you know, people who go, to politics, to become wealthy in a year, in 2 years, they are millionaires, they are billionaires, and nothing is ever, investigated.
That's very serious, Janet. Yeah, that is really very serious. As we are talking right now, we are having so many issues in Kenya, and especially one company called Kenya Power Lighting Company,
yeah, yes,
KPLC. Customers were charged or were given huge bills, and the bills, when the chairman or the supervisors are being asked what really happened, they cannot answer those questions. So Kenyans are really worried. Is this the way Kenya should move forward, or something really needs to be changed?
I think this is something that needs to be changed. And when things like this happen, the government should come in, because these are just normal Kenyans. And these are the basic things that Kenyans need to survive. And if you already put a bill, because I was talking to some Kenyans, and they say the standing bill, even without using the electricity, is gone to 300 Kenyan shillings without having used anything. And that 300 shillings, maybe somebody needs it, maybe to buy, a kilo of flour for their family. But then if you already do that, then how can you say you are alleviating poverty? You make Kenyans even more poor than they are. This is something that the government should come in and check. But we see the government quiet. The government is not even addressing this. It's like in Kenya, it's become like a country of nobody, It's a country of no man. It's like a no man's country.
That's very passionate. And then the other question is, when we talk of corruption.
Yeah.
The corruption index in Kenya is pretty so high.
Yes.
We've got the Anti-Corruption Commission. We've got the DPP. We thought all these things actually could change the perspective on how to fight corruption. But as we are speaking right now, we are still having a very huge problems, especially in fighting corruption. So what do you think should be done?
I think corruption, if you remember when Kibaki came in and he meant the coalition government with his Honorable Raila, that's when the anti-corruption came. And because him as a president, he was an example, people couldn't take, bribes. They were even worried. I could see people, going around the street and taking policemen, and everybody was scared. So an example has to come from the government. But if the government is already looting taxpayers' money, then that drops down, to the normal citizen. So then it becomes like, like a disease. Because even in Kenya, even the kids that are born, they are already corrupt, because it has become like a culture. In Kenya, you become famous how much money you have looted, how much wealth you have looted from the taxpayers. We see people who work in civil servants, like they don't hand much money, like they hand like $200, $300, and they drive cars worth millions. Then that is where I'm saying that an investigation has to come. We remember when, President Obama came in Kenya and he was talking about corruption in Kenya. And he said it's just unacceptable that people in civil service offices, they drive big cars and they are just handing $200. Then you have to think, where is that money coming from? You have to think, where is that money coming from? And then you need to investigate how it happened in Western country. If MPs and members of parliament, they have something extra that is not based on their salary, then they are investigated because something doesn't match. But that never happens in Kenya.
Thank you very much. So let's talk now about the electoral injustice.
Yes.
What's your take on electoral injustice?
Say that again, sorry?
What's your take on electoral injustice and malpractice, which marred the 8th August general election? Is there a way we as Kenyans can cure this?
Yes, I think Kenyans must still continue demanding for the servers to be open, so that a real count can be carried out, because that was ordered by the Supreme Court and didn't happen. And a Kenyan, then you ask yourself, why a Supreme Court can, says the servers to be open and the servers, they are not open, and then these people are not even brought to accountable. Then, we Kenyans, we normal Mwananchi, we ask, serious, these people is like, they take us for granted, they take us for stupid. Because if a court gives an order, we as citizens, we want to see an example of that rule, being integrated. And also there is too much doubt surrounding the results of the 8th August election. And so we have a right to establish our leaders without doubt. So that is why I'm saying the servers, we still have to exist. They have to be open, because then we don't want a doubt on our leaders about that election. And also, Kenyans must continue to demand transparency from all administration now and in future. And also, we are in a dire need of electoral reforms. That is something for sure. So we need electoral reforms, to come in progress. We don't want them to be swept again under the carpet. And also, there are so many plenty of countries that have, democratic election with solid electoral system, and we could worse than analyze their system and copy their best practice. So we should not be, afraid of exchanging knowledge and, borrowing their knowledge, so we can have a good electoral system.
Thank you very much, Janet. Now, let me take you back a little bit about the Kenyan history.
Yes.
The guys who go to cast a vote.
Yes.
Generally, they cast a vote based on their tribal leanings.
Yes.
And sometimes good leaders are not given an opportunity to lead. So what do you think should actually be done to the Kenyan populace to understand that leadership is not about tribal, it's not about a tribal aspect, but something which can really, is going really to help them in the near future? What should be done?
I think then there is where the advocacy comes in, teaching people, explaining them, electoral justice, explaining them that voting is their voice. And when they vote leaders who have no integrity just because of their background, or because they are related, or because they are friends, then it will not change. We want to advocate them, and we want to teach them that when they vote, they cast their vote because that is their voice. They should vote based on the manifesto of the leaders, on the integrity of the leaders, and the accountability of the leaders. And if they vote and those leaders in that 5 years, they don't carry their mandate well, then we have to, to advocate that again and teach them that in the next 5 years, and they should vote them out. They should not just vote them based because there's this kind of Kenyan saying, oh, we don't have someone else, is the only person, No, there are so many people who can, become good leaders. So vote a leader based on the manifest, based on their integrity, based on their accountability. Because let me give an example. If a governor in 5 years has done nothing for his people, why would then Kenyan vote him again? Because he's not bringing any change in the community. Then we have to teach them how to try somebody else, not just to vote the same person just because it's the only person they know. That is wrong. So that's why we need the advocacy in this. That's why we need to teach people how to vote and why it's good to vote leaders of integrity and accountable.
Thank you very much, Sister Janet.
Welcome.
When you are talking about court orders,
yes,
we've seen many of them being flouted by the same government which is supposed to protect the courts and the rule of law. So when it is actually happening this way, what do you think is going to help Kenyans?
It's so funny. I want to give you an example. Since when I was young in school, you are taught like how to respect your elders, how to respect the law, how to respect, school rules, and how to respect, the government and stuff like that. So when you have a government, and I'm telling you a government, if you have a government that is not respecting the rule of law, then how can the normal Mwananchi respect? How can the normal Kenyan respect the rule of law? So that's the problem. So we need, we need a government that is an example, because if the government is not respecting the rule of law, then, we will have people coming in our houses, beating us, and, because no one is respecting the law, because, We do what the government is doing because the government is an example of its people. So you see a government that is not respecting the rule of law, no one else will respect, and we will have people coming to steal in our houses, beating us and all that, and nothing happens. So I think the government should be an example to its citizens. I think leaders in the Western countries must take note of the irregularities we have seen and apply a diplomatic pressure to our leaders to help ensure that proper election can be carried out. And when I say this, it's not an aviation to interfere, but there is an international responsibility to end corruption worldwide. So what I'm saying that the Western countries should support leaders of integrity in Africa and leaders of integrity in any other part of the world. Yes. Like that happening in diaspora, because with the knowledge we have and live in a country where there's democracy, you sort of see things different. But what I think this happens is because we are still copying that culture we have back in Kenya, that we have to be entitled based on our ethnicity. But I think having a unique position, to be here or to be outside the country. That's why we should unite our people and tell them that, we want to live like united Kenya. We want to be considered as just like Kenyans. I don't want to be considered as a Kamba or a Luo or a Kikuyu, but as a Kenyan. I don't want people, to think who I am based on my surname or based on my name or where I come from, but as a Kenyan, because we have a generation that is coming. And if this generation coming is just going to find the Kenya we are in today, then it will be a problem. And one thing which is so funny, we have so many intermarriages. So we have Luos who are married to Kikuyus and Kikuyus who are married to Kamba. So then how do you speak about these kids, about, this tribal division? So this is why it comes, and we have, to come together and work as a Kenyan, but not as a tribal ethnic where, different people come from, just as one country. And that is something that we have to advocate and teach the generation to come. And it has to start from now, and it has to start from our leaders. And mostly it has to start from the young generation. And I'm talking to the young generation, people of my generation. This is, the advocacy we have, to take to our people back home in Kenya.
Thank you very much. On another aspect, because there have been some issues about where the guys who are in diaspora sit down, and some of them have actually have a physical fight about political inclinations or alienations. And you really see these are people who are in the Western world. They know exactly what is supposed to be done. They are supposed to be conducting themselves maturely and in a respectable way, but you find them still fighting. Some of them are professors, some of them are doctors. What is really ailing us? I mean, what do you think should be done on that?
I think because, as I said earlier, it's just because of tribal has been so much in us. It's like in our blood. It's become like a culture. So that is the only way to change, and that's the only way to change. And because we take that from back home and, carry it with us, the only way, to change is to come away from that and think Kenyans as, as one people. And also living in the Western country, you can try and see how really is good to live as brothers and sisters, to live as one democracy. So that is the only way we can do for, to alleviate that political, challenge between, different tribes, because that is the only way.
Thank you very much, Janet. Another question right now. We are almost finishing the interview. We are having like 10 minutes before we finish. So what I need us to again look into, and we also want your insight about it. Raila Odinga is taking handshakes everywhere. He's gone to see Baba Moi. He went to see Kibaki. And as an activist who is looking for a better Kenya, do you think the handshake should it should be devolved, as Mr. Kuria is putting it?
You know, as I say again, the handshake is a really betrayal of the Kenyan people. You know, all rallied, all wanted for change, all wanted a revolution, you know, for a better Kenya. However, as I said, if the handshake is, you know, to address the issue that the Kenyans, you know, were lobbying for before the election, that is electoral injustice, you know, corruption, impunity, that's fine. We are happy with that because that is what we are looking for. But also another thing I want to say is history in Kenya has to be written, and it has to be written the way it is to be, because we've seen people who have not really, you know, we've seen dictators in Kenya who have really not, you know, put much in the Kenyan democracy, and we see them being, you know, like praised like heroes. We need, like, you know, we need what I'm saying, we need history to be written, because we don't want an history where we have people who have, you know, bangled with, you know, Kenya's life, you know, police brutality or political assassination. Because when we talk about political assassination, we have people like, you know, Pinto, Tomboya, Saitoti, and those people have never been brought in account. And we have the late Usando, and you kind of doing all these things. So if it is an handshake to bring all these things into account, then I'm happy with that. But if it's just an handshake for fast and on gate, then it's time to tell Kenyans, no, we have to continue fighting for justice and for better Kenya, and we have to stop politics of dynasty. We want a Kenya where anyone can be a president, or, you know, can be a prime minister, but not to be a prime minister because your dad or your father or your uncle was a member of parliament. That should stop. And this is, I'm calling to the new generation to fight for these injustices.
Thank you very much, Janet. Right now, Kenya is mourning an icon and hero, Mr. Kenneth Njido Matiba. What can you tell Kenyans, maybe some of them who were born a few years after his detention and don't really know about anything about him? What do you tell Kenyans about Mr. Kenneth Matiba?
As I said before, the history of the Kenyan, you know, politics is not well written. There are some, you know, dark days, you know, things are not clear, you know, and, you know, you can't celebrate the unknown, you know, because people say things, and then when you go backwards and you read the history, it's different. So I think the history should be written clearly in our primary school, in our school, because then people, they can know. And as I said before, we cannot celebrate, you know, heroes. We don't know if they were heroes or if, you know, they contributed to the building of the Kenyan government or to the Kenyan history or the Kenyan political development, or they were sort of like a malpractice or like a division. So that is why we need history to be written, so then people know really what they are celebrating.
Thank you very much. As we are speaking on the same aspect about Kenneth Matiba, there is a bill in Parliament and at the Senate, or in the Senate, they are discussing about compensating him. So should we be compensating people when they are dead, or we are supposed to compensate them when they are still alive? I
think that's really a hard question, because alive or not alive, you have the right of compensation if something, an injustice happened to you. But also, when we talk about Matiba's, you know, a compensation, what about the 400 people who were killed? What about, you know, bringing to justice, you know, this political assassination like Tomboya, Pinto, you know, J.M. Kariuki, Rombeto Uko, Saitoti? These people have not been accounted. We should not have, you know, like a political class where some people are compensated, others no. We've heard the death of, you know, Chris Musando. He left 2 kids and a family to look after. Who is looking after that family? You know, compensation, if compensation is really worthy and is true, and, you know, there was injustice in that, then it should be to everybody. We have the Dependo, you know, we have, you know, Mutinda, the 6-year-old, who were killed and they were not demonstrating. So if justice has to be done, it has to be done to all Kenyans, but not a particular, you know, tribe or group of people or what, because Kenyans are all Kenyans. No matter where they come, they all need justice. So justice is for everybody. Because me, I encourage a Kenyan for everybody, not a Kenyan of tribal. Or if justice has to be done, it has to be done to everybody. And if compensation has to be done, we also want compensation for the 400 people killed during demonstration, because those people, they were just, demonstrating for their rights. They were not doing anything, and they were following the constitution, because the constitution of Kenya of 2010 allows demonstration. So we also want a compensation for those people, and they are never mentioned anywhere. And that is something that is really hurting the Kenyan people. So we want justice to be brought into account.
Yeah, on the same aspect about compensation, the electrical IT guy or IT guru was killed, Mr. Chris Musando. Here up to now, his family is living in let me call it poverty. I don't know whether that is true or wrong, but that is what some people are saying in the social media. So should it actually be a constructive compensation package and written in the law, enacted in the law, so that things can move forward? Or is this something should be taken to Parliament? Or what do you think?
I think it should be, taken to Parliament and discussed and put into law, because if, people died because of police brutality, those people, they were there demonstrating based on the Constitution. The Constitution allows Kenyans to demonstrate. It's not that we're doing something that is not on their right. So if justice has to be done, and I say again, it has to be done for all Kenyans. And as they put a motion, for compensation on Matiba, there has to be a compensation of the 400 people. They are anybody like anyone else. And, they left their families, they left their moms, their dads, their kids. So they also need compensation. They are like any other person. And as far as Matiba was a fighter and he was fighting for justice, these people were doing the same. They were demonstrating. They were fighting for this justice. So there is any difference. Anyone fighting for justice, small or big, is all the same. As far as, the target is the same. The outcome is the same. They are all fighting for justice. So compensation has to be done to everybody, to every Kenyan,
Thank you very much, my sister. Let me read some of the comments we've had on Facebook. We might not read all of them, but let me just read a few of them. There's a lady here by the name, not a lady, it's a guy, Eliana Machoka. Thank you, my sis. We too are family members in our country. If things are not right, that means we are in trouble too. Okay, and then he says that he wishes that every Kenyan could be reasoning like you. So thank you, Janet. Then there is another, Ombui says Kenyan politicians are too greedy and have contagious passed it over to the civil servants. Wow. Then Yvonne Olo says government has only taken one man from poverty, the Githeri man. Wow. And then this lady here called a Woropany. Diaspora, the #1 GDP earner for Kenya. So diaspora calling accountability of how the government spent public money is in order. Wow. Then dear Tieno, mismanagement by the highest corruption and poverty are the main issues. It is not lack of education on how to vote. Elections are rigged. And then she says, we support the handshake, but not unequivocally. Handshake must deliver on electoral justice to ensure votes matter, social justice and equality. There must be drastic and immediate reforms on policing and improvement in civil and police relations. Those are great comments from Kenyans. So, I mean, it's a great discussion, and we really want to bring every Kenyan on the table so that we can continue to ensure that our Kenya move forward in a better perspective. So, Sister Janet, do you have any closing remarks?
Yes, thank you so much for those remarks for my fellow Kenyans. And what I want to tell the young generation, the Kenyans, that they should stand for their rights. And when they vote, because they are the generation denied, opportunities of, a job. Because when you are denied the opportunity, a job means you are denied everything. You can't have a family because then you don't have, resources to feed the family. So what I'm calling is to tell the young generation to stop thinking like, based on the tribal, or ethical tribe where they come from, but to come together and embrace unity as Kenyan and work together as one, because that is the only way, to change our country. Because I want a Kenya where a Kikuyu can marry a Kamba and there is no problem, where a Luo can marry a Kikuyu and there is no problem, where we are all Kenyans, and where somebody can buy a land in Kikuyu and dwell there, where a Luo can buy a land in Kamba and dwell there, and not having, a thought of, oh, maybe one day I will be chased away. Because Kenya is for everybody. We want to embrace that, and I'm calling for the young generation to work based on unity in schools, once they start even in school. I want to call for the teachers, for the university teachers, to start advocating that in school, because when you start it while we are young in school, then we bring a generation that is unified, that is one Kenya, that is not tribal. So that is all what I can say, and thank you so much.
Thank you very much. We've got a few minutes, and I don't want to lock somebody's question here. There is a guy by the name, the name by Wewe Otieno Olo, and he's having almost a similar question with Kevin Wanyoike. They are saying, can you really say something a little bit about our education system? Is there something which can be done for it to for Kenyans to ensure that they have got their value for money when they are paying for education in Kenya?
Yes, I think we had one of the best education, in Africa. And when every time, because I go home very often, and, because I love Kenya, I'm a patriot and I love my country, and when I go to Kenya, I've been surprised to see like education in Kenya has become like business. Every corner is full of private universities. So in Kenya, and degree is not valid anymore, because we have so many universities, private college. And, it's like I don't know if there's a system of vetting to see really these universities, what they teach, the literature and everything, or if there's accountability about it. So I think, the Minister of Education should take into that. And also we should, have like national vocational training where people are training. Not everybody is able to go to university. So we also need to have some training where people are taught some particular jobs and they are ready to go to job, because not everybody is smart to go to university. And also we should build a system where when people come from universities, then they can get, a job or an apprenticeship, sort of like a degree or a job while they are, doing their degree, so that we can help the young generation to get into work system. So I think the system of Kenyan education needs to change, because there are so many private universities that we don't know how accountable they are. So we need to check on the private sector.
Thank you very much, Janet. And again, because I had a few minutes, I don't really want to lock anybody outside. There's another gentleman, don't know whether it's a lady, yeah, Kasoi Nzo. That is, there's a question. He's saying that, so you passionately speak about healthcare in Kenya when you are doing the demonstration outside the Chatham House. So what's your perspective about the health status in Kenya?
Oh, we know the health status in Kenya is just a nightmare. Like you go to Kenyatta National Hospital, you go there to sentence your life. And then you wonder, there is this, news that they want to get doctors from Cuba. And then we have doctors, and you ask yourself then, if we have universities educating doctors, who can't treat our own people, then it's just ridiculous, because if you have doctors who can't, treat your people, then why are you training? That means there is something that doesn't work. So what I was thinking, instead of, it's good to get, doctors from, Cuba, if they are there, to train the doctors in Kenya, but I don't agree with that. I think then we can get people to train our doctors further, so we have trained doctors. So then our doctors can work in Kenya. We also have doctors in the UK. If our system works, our doctors or our nurses, people working in healthcare, they can go and then fast our healthcare in Kenya. But because of lack of those opportunities, lack of that good system, then that's why they are here. But that is a big resource that the diaspora can give to the Kenya health. Because we have big doctors here, consultants who are Kenyan, big nurses, specialist nurses, and that they can go back to Kenya and treat our own people. But we need a system that works, because then the diaspora, the people working here, they can have an opportunity and enhance the health system in Kenya.
Thank you very much, Mr. Janet. And if there is any other thing you want to add as a closing remark, again, because you had already given some closing remarks, but if there is something you want to tell Kenyans, please, you are free to say. Thank you very much, my sister.
Okay, what I want to tell the Kenyan, we must ensure that the system in Kenya in place uphold the constitution and do not make a mockery of our independence, which was won with with blood. So that is what I want to tell them, and I want to tell them they should, continue pressuring for justice. They should not stop, because we want justice, and they should continue pressuring for leaders of integrity and accountable. If leaders are not accountable, we vote them out. We don't want leaders staying in politics for 40 years. And also that money has been stolen. We have like the Golden Bag, Anchronism, the Eurobond, NWS, and those money has never been, those cases have never come to accountability. Where is that money? That money can build those slums in Kibera, those slums in Matare. We have a lot of revenue, just because the revenue is just used in a bad way. So we need our taxpayers' money to be used in the right way. And we Kenyans should pressure for that. We should not just sit and wait. Because what I don't want is 30 years ago, my parents were fighting the same struggle. And I want to tell you one thing. The small village I come from, there is one road that, people die. It's just a 10 kilometers road. But people die because the road, when it is raining, cars can't come in and this. And I remember 30 years, my parents were fighting for the MPs of that region, to tarmac the road. 30 years later, I, Janet, I'm fighting the same injustice. Is that possible in a country where there is a democracy, in a country after 55 of independence, in a country where people work and pay tax? That is unacceptable. I don't want 30 years later my kids to be fighting the same thing for that 10 kilometers of road. That is just unacceptable. That is not on. Because if my parents 30 years were fighting for the same injustice and fighting the same injustice, then where are we going? So myself, if I was a politician, I would be very ashamed. Because let me give you an example. Let's say you are wealthy and you are rich and you live in a village and you have a gated house and the people living around you, they are very poor. Those are the same people who won't let you sleep at night because they will come and break in your house, this and that. So what you do, you make sure that the people around you, they live a good life. They have comfortable, they have food, they have, health, they have, everything, all those commodities. Because then that is the only way those people will leave you in peace. So I'm asking my politician, when they go around in their constituencies in Kenya, do they not really feel hurt? What do they think? Do they not think of the normal Kenyan who can't really, who can't put food on their table? Why do they want to keep the money on themselves? Why do they have civil servants who are corrupt and nothing is ever done? That's what a politician should think. Because if a politician, your system is good and your people are happy, then everybody in the society is happy. Everybody in that community is happy. So that is what I'm asking my politician. When they go home, they should think, if it was them not having been able to pay their school fees, not being able to put money on the table for their kids, how would they feel? That's how we normal Kenyans feel. So when they do whatever they do, when they have their corruption, when they have, their billing where like a road of 20 billion, they pump it to 40 billion just because they want, to loot taxpayers' money. They should think twice. because the same injustice 30 years ago is the same injustice we are fighting for. And we don't want to leave a country full of deaths to the generation to come. We don't want sort of country. We want to leave the generation to come a country that is wealthy, that is good, that has revenue. That is the country we want to leave to the next generation. So we can't just continue looting the country, and then the next generation that is not even born, they have to pay money that have been looted by their grandparents. That is just unacceptable, and we can't accept that. And that is why I'm calling the new generation to fight against this injustice and this corruption.
Thank you very much, Sister Janet.
And leaders to be held into accountable.
Thank you very much, Sister Janet. Because we've got only 5 minutes, and there are 2 questions from. There are some names are just difficult to read here. Okay, I'll only get. I'll only read a question from this guy here. Is called. 1 second here. Okay. Kimani is asking you, if you meet or if you get an opportunity to sit down with President Uhuru Kenyatta, what will you tell him?
That would be really a good opportunity for me, because what I would want to tell Uhuru Kenyatta, he is the president of Kenya. That means the buck stops with him, which means that we want him to understand how dissatisfied the Kenyan people are at the way in which some things have been handled regarding the election and other issues facing modern Kenyans, corruption, injustice, and more. I would pressure in corruption, because in Kenya you are unable to do business. Everything is corruption. You go for an ID card, you have to pay a bribe. Even the normal things that you are entitled for, if you don't cash 1,000 or 2,000, you are not given. If you apply for a passport, you have to pay for a bribe. Even when you have the right documents all the time, you always have to pay for bribe. Why? Then you find Kenyans, they even become poorer and poorer, because that money they pay for bribe is the money they would use, to buy food for their kids, and everything just becomes unavoidable. And then one thing, we have the diaspora, who have money, who are wealth, who can go back in Kenya and invest and create jobs for the people in Kenya, create new jobs. But because of the corruption, they are unable to do that. I've heard many people going back home to start business, and they come back here because of the situation, the corruption. They can't handle it. And when you are used to be living in a country of justice and integrity, where the system works, you go to Kenya, you get to the airport, and the corruption just starts in the airport. And then you just want to come back because things don't work. So we want a Kenya where there is no corruption, because then the system can work. So we have many investors coming in, and then we can create jobs for the young people, and then we can have more revenue, and then we can raise our poverty. So we don't have poverty in Kenya, but unless that is tackled, then we are moving nowhere. Kenya becomes a no-man country, which is right now at the moment, because everything, everybody, every child, everybody in that country is just corrupt.
Thank you. The last question, the last of the last, is from Kevin Koitamet. Kevin Koitamet. Kevin Koitamet is asking a very simple question. He's also from in the diaspora, or from the diaspora. What's your take on Miguna, and what do you think the government should do to Dr. Miguna?
I think that was a really a very big international shame, because you cannot deport your own citizen. And that was a really big shame. Not just a small shame, but a very big international shame, because you can't, deport one of your own, because a government should look after its own people. So in that way, you even kind of get worried if a government is treating its own like that. Kenyans, we are in danger. And that's why we should continue fighting for justice, because how Miguna was treated, no one would ever been treated like that. Even the worst dictator would not treat his citizen like that. We saw Miguna detained in a toilet. How would you ever do that to anybody? You can't detain somebody in a toilet where people go, for their waste. You can't detain somebody like that. Miguna is a Kenyan born, and forever he will remain a Kenyan. And there was no point. And if Miguna did something wrong, then he was supposed to face the law. They could have taken him to the court. So we Kenyan, we ask ourselves, when you do something wrong, where are you taken? You are taken to the court. And the court is the court which does the ruling. It's the court that interprets the constitution. The court interpreted the constitution and said Miguna to be brought in court. Why did they not do that? Why did they not take Miguna to the court if they thought Miguna did something wrong? There was no point of deporting Miguna because he's a Kenyan, and deporting Miguna and not, adhering with court orders. Then you wonder what really the government is saying, because the government can't come and tell me, Janet, respect court orders when it itself is not respecting court orders. That was a big blow. And it's funny, I had other friends of mine, African friends of mine, and the only thing they would tell me when I got to work was, Janet, what's happening in your country? What's wrong? How can somebody be deported from a third world country to a first world country? What's happening? And they were telling me Kenya was the only African country we were looking forward to, because it's the only African country was left with democracy. You take democracy out of Kenya, then that is the end of Africa. There is no hope in Africa. So I think the government did something wrong, and I think the government should still continue and respect the court orders and bring Miguna to court, so then they can charge him with whatever they want to charge him with.
Thank you very much, Mr. Janet. We take this opportunity or this time to say thank you again for accepting our invitation to come to the KDRTV station. And we've really had a very wonderful discussion about our country, Kenya. So for viewers who are watching, thank you very much again also for getting an opportunity or getting your time to sit down and watch the interview. We'll be bringing you more interviews like this. You can even vote for some of the people you want to come on board so that we can ask them questions about our country, Kenya, and how we can progress and how we can continue. Like our Facebook page, KDRTV. We have got a website, www.kdrtv.com, where we have so many articles written by Kenyans. We've got a YouTube channel, KDRTV. You can subscribe, give us your views, and may God continue blessing you. Up to next time, when we'll be having another interview, may God bless